UFC tonight, we've got Corey Sandhagen versus Davison Figueiredo. I've left it late. I'm just going to run through the card really quick and just give you my quick picks. So, first fight, we've got Juliana Miller versus Ivana Petrovic. Juliana Miller, good grappler. Ivana Petrovic, it says the better, well-rounded fighter. Tapology picks, they're going with Petrovic as well, and I'm agreeing with that. I feel like she's just too well-rounded, and she'll get the win here. Next fight, you've got Dontel Mays versus Thomas Peterson. Like I said, guys, I'm running through these quick. Dontel Mays, been around quite a long time, fought a lot of fighters in the UFC. Fought the who's who, you could say, of like the mid-level fighters, not the highest level. He's coming up against Thomas Peterson, who's been doing alright, coming off a loss to Shamil Gaziev, and then a win before that against Mohammed Usman. It's a tricky fight, this, because Dontel Mays, he's got a bit of an unassuming record, hasn't he? He's lost quite a few of these fights, but by decision. I know his last fight was a heel hook to Volta Walker, but most of the fights he's not getting finished. He's taking these guys to a decision, and he's doing alright. He's not the worst heavyweight in the world, is he? And Thomas Peterson, he's not got the level of experience Dontel Mays has got, and he's been finished by strikes a few times. And I think Dontel Mays, he can be dangerous if he clips you. Then he can definitely put you out, and he's got the experience advantage, I'd say, as well. So a tricky one to predict. I'll probably leave this fight off anyway, but if I had to pick, then I would go with Dontel Mays, maybe as an underdog. Next fight, you've got Gaston Bolaños versus Kwang Lee. Gaston Bolaños, I think everyone remembers him from his time on Bellator when he hit that nice spinning back elbow. But he's not had the same success in the UFC as of yet, but it doesn't mean that he can't have. It looks like the UFC are kind of building towards that style of fighter anyway. They want these flashy Muay Thai strikers, and I feel like they give him a little bit of a layup so far, even though he did lose against Marcus McGee. He was probably definitely meant to win that fight. And he's decent, Gaston Bolaños. I think he should have the skills to deal with Kwang Lee, who's a bit of a striker himself. But I think Gaston Bolaños just has the technical advantage. The Tapology predictions are siding with Gaston Bolaños as well, so take that for what you will. I don't think the odds are good enough to put him on. We'll have a look at the end. Now we've got Marina Rodriguez versus Gillian Robertson. Gillian Robertson, she's looked good of late with her grappling, taking the back, getting the rear naked chokes, and she's definitely getting better with age. How old is she now? She's 29, nearly 30, and she's coming up against Rodriguez, who's 38. Rodriguez, though, she's gone 1 win and 4 losses in her last 5 fights, but these 2 split decisions in the last 2 against good fighters, Lucindo and Jessica Andrade. She got a win over Michelle Waterson, who's retired now, I think, isn't she? And then lost by decision to Jean de Roba, and then Amanda Lemos before that. I think she's alright, Marina Rodriguez, and she went to decision with Mackenzie Dern as well, if I'm not mistaken. And Mackenzie Dern's obviously a better grappler than Gillian Robertson, although this was a few years ago, and Mackenzie Dern just got a lot better since. So tricky one to predict, but she's a sizable underdog. Plus 240 is Marina Rodriguez, so you could have a little bit of a punt there on an underdog. Next fight, you've got Azmat Bekoev versus Ryan Lauder. Ryan Lauder, I think he just won the Ultimate Fighter, the latest one. I've not really been keeping up with Ultimate Fighter these days. Who is keeping up with it? It's gone rubbish, hasn't it? Azmat Bekoev, 19-3, looked good in his last fight. Yeah, he looked good in his last fight, his debut in the UFC, where he got KO over. Sorry about that. Over Zachary Reese, and he's coming up against Lauder, who's just won the Ultimate Fighter. Finished Robert Valentin in the finale, I guess. Excuse me if I'm wrong, because I've not been watching it. UFL before that, his last loss, split decision, 2 years ago. tricky to predict. I didn't watch the Ultimate Fighter. I've not seen much of Ryan Lauder, and Bekaev looks good. Topology predictions are going with Bekaev, but I don't really know enough about him to have a bet on this. If I had to pick, I'd go Bekaev. Just got more experience, hasn't he? And he's looked good in his last fight. Next fight, you've got Yana Santos versus Miesha Tate. Two of the female fighters who've been around the longest, I guess, now. Miesha Tate, you all know what she's about. And then Yana Santos, I can't remember her last name, Kunitskaya, was it? Or was that someone else? God knows. Topology predictions are going with Tate, and I would slightly agree with that. I think Tate's probably the better, well-rounded fighter. Who knows if she's still got it, because she's been in and out, hasn't she, of the sport. But yeah, I think she looked alright in her last fight, if I remember rightly. So I'll probably lean Tate with that one. Next fight, Jeremy Stephens versus Mason Jones. Interesting that they've re-signed Jeremy Stephens. I know everyone's probably saying that. I think Mason Jones wins this fight, but I will say this: if Jeremy Stephens does win, you know what they're going to do. They're going to match him against McGregor, and that's going to be McGregor's comeback fight. It's already written, isn't it? So I am going to go with Mason Jones. I think he's the better fighter, and he's younger and fresher, but it's kind of written, isn't it? If Jeremy Stephens wins, they're definitely going to try to make him versus McGregor. Mark my words on that one. But yeah, Mason Jones. Next fight, you got... Oh, it's loading. Cameron Smotherman versus Sergey Sidey. I watched the weigh-ins, and this Sidey looks big, doesn't he? He looks massive for a bantamweight. Cameron Smotherman coming off a win over Jake Hadley, and you see what Jake Hadley can do in his last fight in the PFL. Jake Hadley is a good fighter, and so that says something about Smotherman's skills. But 11-2, Sergey Sidey coming off a split decision win in his last fight, and a split decision loss before that. He's a big guy though, isn't he? Tough to say. I don't know enough about him, but looking at the weigh-ins, I'd say just off physicality alone, Sergey Sidey. But you don't pick fighters off that, so yeah, I don't know enough. If I had to pick, I'd say Sidey, but I'll leave that one off. Next fight, Montel Jackson versus Daniel Marcos. Daniel Marcos, 17-0. Could be 16-1 because that fight against David Grant was really close, and I thought David Grant won that. But Daniel Marcos got the decision, and he's coming up against Montel Jackson, who's only really lost against two wrestling heavy performances against Brett Johns and... I know his name, I just can't think of it off the top of my head. Just thought Ricky Simon. So, I think it's Ricky Simon. Anyway, he's good, Montel Jackson, and he does have a lot of knockout power. He's coming off a win over Damon Blackshear in his last fight. That was a good KO. But Daniel Marcos, he's not won all his fights by KO, Montel Jackson. There's a lot of decisions in there. And Daniel Marcos is a very good striker in his own right. And he finds a way to win fights. You can't get to 70. It's not like he's been fighting nuggets. You know what I mean? He's been fighting good level opponents, and he always finds a way to win. A lot of people are picking Montel Jackson in this fight, and I do think he has potential to win and get the KO. But if he doesn't get the KO, I can see Marcos finding a way to win one of these split decisions, what he manages, because there's something to that, finding a way to win. So I'm going to go against the grain here, and I'm going to say Daniel Marcos gets the win there. Split decision or something, maybe. Next fight, you've got Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Daniel Rodriguez. Daniel Rodriguez, he had promise at one point, and I thought he was going to go somewhere, but seems to have slid off a little bit. He's gone 2-3 in his last 5. Same as Santiago Ponzinibbio, though, but I do think he still got it, Santiago Ponzinibbio. That was a good performance against Carlson Harris in his last fight. And Daniel Rodriguez is coming off a split decision to Alex Morono, who didn't look great in his last fight. I think Santiago Ponzinibbio still got it. Probably throw a few eye pokes in there and then managed to get the win over D-Rod. I just think, I don't know what's happened to Daniel Rodriguez, but he's started to decline a little bit. So yeah, I'd say Santiago Ponzinibbio on that one. Next fight, good fight. Rene Derrida versus Bo Nickel. Interesting one as well. I think Bo Nickel's going to get it done. Definitely his toughest fight to date though, so it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But yeah, I can see Bo Nickel maybe catching him on the feet. And I don't think he'll be scared to grapple with Derrida. He knows enough Bo Nickel now to stay safe, and he's got that explosivity from wrestling and stuff as well. Derrida though is a calm, cool fighter, and he could get the finish at any point. It's not just the first round; it could be the second or the third. Got a lot of experience, and he's relaxed as well. So it'd be an interesting fight, but yeah, I just think Bo Nickel might catch him. And then TKO him maybe. And then the main event, you've got Corey Sandhagen versus Davison Figueiredo. Odds are heavy favouring Corey Sandhagen. He's, what is he now? Minus 560. That's ridiculous, I think. He's a big favourite on the Tapology predictions as well. I think people are overlooking Figueiredo. He's looked good at bantamweight. I know his last fight wasn't the best against Peter Yan, but that's Peter Yan, and I think Yan's gone up a level. Yan's getting better. And he had his moments in that fight at Davison Figueiredo as well, even though there was few and far between. But Sandhagen, he looked alright against Umar in terms of he was doing good and not getting held down. But I don't know, I think Figueiredo might give Sandhagen a tougher fight than people are thinking on the feet. I think he could catch Sandhagen, mixing the grappling well enough, where Sandhagen doesn't just have to worry about the grappling, he has to worry about the striking as well, so it's going to be a little bit different. I could see it going either way, but if I'm going to take a risk, I might go Davison Figueiredo to get the win. It is risky, and I think if he does win, it'll be a close decision. I don't think he's going to finish Sandhagen. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because now I'm talking it through. It's a 50-50, isn't it? But it's definitely not minus 500, so I won't be betting on Sandhagen. If I was betting on anyone, it would be Figueiredo. So let me just have a quick look at the odds, and then I'll show you what bet I'm going to look at putting on. So let's have a little look. Right. So first fight, Miesha Tate. Yeah, we'll throw Miesha Tate on. Marina Rodriguez versus Gillian Robertson. Well, we ain't going to go Gillian Robertson at 1-3. Potentially Marina Rodriguez is a bit of an underdog, but I think it'll be close, that fight. Next fight, Gaston Bolaños versus Quang Le. We'll go with Gaston Bolaños. I think he's the better technician, and he should be able to get a decision win. Next fight, Loda versus Asmat Bekaev. Don't know enough about it, and I definitely wouldn't be putting Bekaev on at 1-4. I said Bekaev probably win that, but 1-4 we're not touching it. Juliana Miller versus Ivana Petrovic. I think Petrovic is the better well-rounded fighter, and at 2-5 we'll put it on. I think it's worth the risk. And then next fight we've got Thomas Peterson versus Dontel Mays. We're not going Thomas Peterson, but do we take a risk on Dontel Mays? We'll leave it off for now. But decent odds if you fancied a risk, you could put it on. Bo Nickel versus Derrida. We said Bo Nickel, but maybe not worth it at 3-10. Then Montel Jackson versus Daniel Marcos. Now, do we take a risk on this one on the underdog? I think we do. I think we put this one on. It is risky though. What's it about that? Yeah. I think you got to take some risks. Santiago Ponzinibbio, we'll say. So City versus Cameron Smotherman. We said City, but we'll leave that off just because we're not so sure. Mason Jones, but we're not putting it on at 1-7. And Corey Sandhagen, look at that. Davison Figueiredo's 4-1. I really do want to put it on. What would it be? 952 quid that'd take the odds up to. But we'll just leave it off because, yeah, it could go the other way as well. But yeah, so we've got, how many fights we got on there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tenner on that gets you 190 back. So really quickly, Miesha Tate, Gaston Bolaños, Ivana Petrovic, Daniel Marcos, and Santiago Ponzinibbio. If you wanted to take Daniel Marcos off, then you get 70 quid back off a tenner. Probably a lot safer. But I just fancy him. I fancy him in this fight. I think he'll get the win. So I'll probably put him back on. So I'll try and get a video. The card, I've looked at the card next week. It's rubbish, isn't it? So I should do a video. So come back and watch. If not, I've got an idea for another video I'm going to do anyway. So good luck on the weekend, and I'll see you next time.